The hate crime laws being used in Boulder today trace back to a very specific case, the killing of Matthew Shepard in 1998. But what if we were not told the truth about this case? And in fact, we were not. Now, this story relates not only to Gay Pride Month, which just kicked off a few days ago, but also to the hate crime laws that are being used to prosecute the firebomber in Boulder, Colorado. These two stories go together in a way that maybe you wouldn't think, so buckle up because you're not going to like this, which makes this photo all the more relevant. Crazed attacker, gay pride flag in the background. So here we go. How do these two things come together? It is uncomfortable. It's a story about how grief was weaponized, well-intended grief. A myth became law, and now that law is giving the government the right to punish thought. So the suspect accused of firebombing peaceful pro-Israel demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado, has been charged with 16 counts of attempted murder, hate crimes, and a list of other charges. What he did was heinous, should be prosecuted, no question. But why are we biting on this hate crime bit? What even is that? Aren't all crimes hateful? A crime is a crime. Do we need a new category to punish a crazed man with a makeshift flamethrower? Attempted murder and assault should cover it. Labeling something a hate crime may feel satisfying, but it is dangerous because our legal system is supposed to guarantee equal justice under the law. Adding extra punishment based on intent or emotion risks undermining that very principle. It opens the door to thought policing, punishing people more harshly, not just for what they did, but what we think motivated that. And can you see how then our own rights will be eroded under this? Ironically, hate crime laws gained momentum under the Clinton administration following the 1998 death of Matthew Shepard. The media story was based on so many lies it's hard to count. We were manipulated not only into the gay pride movement, but also to sign off on the very notion of hate crimes. The Clinton administration jumped right into the Shepard case before an investigation had taken place. President Clinton even called the hospital and gave a national speech about bigotry. 10 years later, we got this. President Obama signed the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. It added new protections from hate crimes for sexual orientation, gender identity, gender and disability. It removed federally protected activity requirements. So previously, a hate crime had to occur during specific federal activity like voting or attending school. Now, the new law removed that restriction so the federal government can prosecute hate crimes even if the victim was not engaged in such activities. So as you can imagine, this new power allowed the government to prosecute thought, to track ideologies, to expand its own power based on intention. Now, the public was sold this story of Matthew Shepard's death as an innocent man who was beaten to death for making a pass at a straight man. But in-depth reporting tells a very different story. The amazing reporting of Stephen Jimenez shows that the public was told a lie, and also not only to expand government powers, but to sell the gay rights movement and lie to gay Americans about the true danger that Matthew Shepard was involved in that got him killed, which was drugs and prostitution, not hitting on straight people. Jimenez himself is a gay man. He knew right away that he was being manipulated by this story. He spent months in Laramie, Wyoming, talking to people who had first-hand accounts. And no one that he talked to immediately thought this was a hate crime, not even the murder prosecutors in the state at first. Why is that? Because many credible witnesses told Jimenez that Matthew Shepard and his killer, Aaron McKinney, had a long and storied sexual relationship and that they sold drugs together across state lines. Jimenez shows how Shepard had been engaging in very dangerous activity prior to his death, including drugs and prostitution, possibly motivated by the fact that his autopsy showed he was HIV positive, which may be why he was so reckless. Now, just a few months before his death, he had his jaw wired shut because he reportedly made a very aggressive pass at a straight man who punched him. Jimenez reports that Shepard tried to report this punch as a rape, but when he was examined at the hospital, the physician found no evidence of rape, and Shepard himself dropped the account. Also, Shepard had previously been arrested as a sexual predator, according to Jimenez. Jimenez found that Shepard had been arrested for molesting 8-year-old boys, had received counseling and been hospitalized for suicide As a result of that, the prosecution in his murder trial moved to suppress this from the record during the trial in 1999. Now, Shepard's name is currently on that hate crime bill, along with James Byrd, who was a victim of one of the worst racially motivated murders in modern history. He was murdered by white supremacists. Now, I ask you, if you were Byrd's family and you knew the truth about Matthew Shepard, how would you feel about the two of them on the same bill? Also, there were two men arrested for the murder of Matthew Shepard. Only one of them was involved in a sexual relationship and knew Matthew Shepard. The other was kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he got pistol whipped for trying to stop it. Take a look at this picture closely. What you see there is like a half moon shaped wound. That was consistent with the same markings on Matthew Shepard. He was hit by the same guy who killed him, and he never got a fair trial. I'm comfortable in saying he didn't get a fair trial because the prosecution got a plea deal by threatening him with the death penalty, and he signed away his rights to an appeal. In fact, he tried to make that case that he didn't understand it. He was only 21 at the time. The entire country was after him. He lost his attempt at an appeal just a few months ago. So why does this matter? Matthew Shepard was no angel, but clearly did not deserve to be beaten and left for dead in a cold overnight. On that, we can agree it was a horrible murder. The murderer deserved punishment, but it matters because gay men were never told the truth. Drugs and prostitution and HIV is what led Matthew Shepard into dangerous behaviors and into a dangerous situation, not hitting on the wrong straight man. It matters because our grief was manipulated. We were sold a sad story that left out these important details, such as the award-winning play, The Laramie Project, the song The Scarecrow by Melissa Etheridge, which is a song about intolerance, which was not Matthew Shepard's story. This NBC made-for-TV movie, The Matthew Shepard Story. Not one of them told us the truth until this brave gay man saw right through it, Stephen Jimenez, and decided to investigate. And what happens then when we don't catch the government and the media in these lies? Obviously, we get expanded government power, like the Matthew Shepard hate crime bill. There is obviously no need for a hate crime bill. Murder is murder. Assault with a flamethrower should do it, right? That ought to do it. Now we live in the shadow of that narrative where hate crime laws sound righteous, but they create legal disparities, moral confusion. They elevate certain victims above others, and they allow prosecutors and politicians to virtue signal rather than uphold principle, and they distract us from the real danger. In this case, if you were a gay man, you lived in fear that the wrong straight man would kill you when you should have lived in fear of the drug and prostitution rings that exist inside gay communities. Isn't that so much scarier? Don't you think? So yes, the Boulder firebomber should have the book thrown in at him, but hate crime need not apply. We don't need new categories of crime. We need equal application of justice, and we need to tell the truth, even if that's uncomfortable. That's the only way forward. Let me know what you think of this.
Full stop. I totally agree. I've been saying for years that the hate crime legislation is total garbage. And most people in our chat room agree with you that the hate crime legislation only really employs basically when you push this hate crime legislation, it employs like a few thousand more government workers, right? Yeah. Basically like DEI projects and all of these other things to like identify and root out hate crimes. Like if you kill someone, that's hateful.
Right.
We need to add another layer on top of it because you killed that person because of the way you felt about their skin. No, it's hateful. Murder is the ultimate, right? The ultimate horrible thing. We don't need hate crime legislation on top of this.
So let me know, were those shocking details? Because I was very manipulated to think that, oh my God, homophobia, that's so sad. That's why Matthew Shepard died. These details were suppressed by our media and our government, and I found it shocking when I read this book. Let me know if that's new to you. Anything?
It was new. I mean, what I know this from talking with you over the past couple of years after this, this revelation. And I lived in Montana. People in the chat room said, I'm shocked by this. Some people in the chat room saying, I live in liberal part of Colorado, and I'm surprised to hear this. I didn't know this part of the story at all. And they, of course, Bill Clinton and the Janet Reno and all of them rallied around this idea. Songs were written about it. You could hear and talk about it when I lived in the state of Montana. They would talk about this. So I think a lot of people have been duped into this story over the years.
And the person who ran then the Matthew Shepard charity was a Clinton lawyer, a former Clinton lawyer. Like, money was raised on this. Our grief was weaponized. We meant well, right? We didn't know. Why lie to us in order to expand government powers? I'm mad as shit.
Can we also, though, talk about the other big piece of the story is that this guy in Boulder was an illegal immigrant. I mean, he was here and his visa expired, so he was here illegally under Biden's open border policy. So, of course, they're never going to talk about that. They'll never open up and actually talk about how this guy was here illegally and carried out this attack. How many more individuals like this are there in the United States? The drug cartels, the gang members, the violent criminals who are here that the Biden's open border policy allowed in. By the way, when he violated his visa agreement, he became illegal. Did the Biden administration do anything?
Nope.
To get him out of here? No, they didn't. They didn't care at all. They probably thought, well, he's in a liberal sanctuary city, Boulder, Colorado, then he'll be happy here and maybe he'll vote for me. He'll probably become like a voter. Is probably what'll happen.
Possibly.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts on that.